Hi everybody, welcome to Missy's Imaginings. I'm back with a video. I have good news, a couple items of good news. First of all, my hand is doing better. Right now they have it taped up for just to relieve some of the pressure on the tendons, and she ran out of tan colored tape, so so we're going for the dramatic look with black, I guess. But anyway, and I get to start weaning myself off of the brace. I'm supposed to start stretching a little bit more and using my hand more, which is wonderful. And then if it gets real sore and tired, then I'm supposed to use the brace to kind of offset that and let it rest. So that's good news. The other good news is our cat Salem was having a very difficult time. We lost his sister. They were litter mates, and we're thinking that his body had like an autoimmune response to losing her because they were always together. And it turned out with his blood work that his thyroid just went into like super overdrive, and he was literally eating up his own body. And so he went from being about a 11 pound or 11 pound plus cat, because he's large, down to like 7 pounds. And that's a lot for a cat to lose. And you could just feel every bone. You could see all his joints. And of course, we took him to the vet. His sister had kidney issues and a tumor when she passed. And so we were nervous this was happening again, but it was his thyroid. So now he gets medicine 3 times a day, which is fun, but he's doing better. So we'll flip it around and we'll let you meet Salem. So this is Salem. Hello, handsome. And he is 11 years old. Yeah, right? Yeah, 11 years old. So yeah, it's finally getting to where we can actually pet here and not feel every vertebrae, and in his tail feel every vertebrae. And his hips are, we can still kind of feel the little hip bones here, but it's not near what it was. And so he's getting better, which helps all of us feel better. And he's kind of getting used to his life without his sister, and kind of getting reassured that the 3 of us are not going anywhere. We're all still here, and he's a sweetheart. So you've probably seen him in other videos and everything, but yeah, here's the official view of our little good luck black cat. There you go. Now you're famous. What do you think? So there we go. So that's the boy. He's doing much better, and so we're very thankful for that. So yeah, it's fun to give a pill to a cat 3 times a day. But he's doing better, so that's good. And so with Salem doing better and my hand doing better, the other thing that I thought would be fun is, as in the title, is we're going to go ahead and make a pattern for BJD from a people pattern, and this is a Star Trek costume. And it's the Simplicity Pattern 9394. I found it at a thrift shop for $1. And when I pulled out the instructions, and I'll go ahead and put a picture up here because it's kind of dark and it'd be hard to see, but the instructions will show all the pieces, and these actually are a decent size printed out here. A lot of times when you look at the instructions, the pieces represented will be really, really small, and so to enlarge them can be really difficult. But we're going to go ahead and use these images to enlarge them to get the pattern pieces so that you could make these Star Trek costumes for your BJD. To enlarge it to an SD size, of course it's going to go up quite a bit, so we're going to start with enlarging it to a basic quarter scale. And in order to do that, I'm going to I'll look at my Miro Doll mail quarter scale, and then I also have a Resin Soul Song quarter scale. And then I sew a lot for Eloise by Tonner, and she has a basic 1/4 scale body that's not super hourglass like, so it should work for you to kind of adjust as far as when I enlarge these pieces to get an overall idea of how much I'm going to enlarge it. Those are the dolls I'm going to reference. Now if you have, for example, a quarter scale doll that's 46 centimeters instead of 43 centimeters, you'll have to take that into account. But it's going to be a general mid-range quarter scale that we're going to enlarge this to. And there's a couple ways you can do this. I do have another video, but it's way down in the playlist, and a lot of times people don't find it right away, so I thought it'd be fun to do another one. The first way you can start this process is by taking this on a copy machine and enlarging it. At least 100%, because you at least want to double the size of it, and you might have to do that a couple times. Another way to enlarge this easily is to scan this image into your computer and then enlarge it by enlarging the image so that it enlarges everything geometrically related to each other, if that makes sense. You don't want to just make it taller and then make it wider, but you want to grab the corner and enlarge the entire image so that everything enlarges correctly in relation to each other, the entire image. And I personally, I use Publisher, which is a Microsoft PageMaker product. I'm not sure what you would use on a Mac. I've only ever used something on a Mac once, and it drove me nuts. And no shade to all you Mac people, but I didn't have any frame of reference for what I was looking for, and it was not a good experience because I'm just so ingrained into Microsoft products and things that are compatible with Windows. So I like to use Publisher. I have used Adobe PageMaker to enlarge images on a sheet, and then I can print it really easily. So I have done that. So that's a couple ways where you can start off enlarging the actual image itself with something that is going to enlarge it in a very balanced way. Once you get that part done, and we'll have that ready here in a few minutes, then we can go about enlarging it specifically to fit the doll that we want. And that's when we can use the very, very, very old method of making a graph and then another graph that is scaled up and transferring those images over. And to me, that's probably the easiest way to keep my lines clean and enlarge something, because the more you enlarge something like this that's very small, especially if you want to get up to, a 4th scale, and he's relatively small for a 4th scale. For instance, this inseam right here looks to be about maybe 5 centimeters, and his legs are going to be way longer than that. So to try to enlarge this to his size, what's going to happen is the lines are going to become really thick and pixeled, really grainy when you try to enlarge it that much. So you're going to lose the definition of your lines. That's why I always enlarge it a minimal amount to where I can at least keep it on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and then I will enlarge from there, because those would still have to be streamlined a little bit to make our lines cleaner. So that's what we're going to do. And then, of course, on the picture, we'll show that you can kind of look at your instructions, and I want to reference it here while I'm speaking, and you can look at the photo there. The instructions will show if you're doing like the female pattern or the male pattern and what pieces you're going to need for that particular view. Granted, because they're going to fit differently, because the female one is going to have darts and everything to account for the bust line. Also remember that these are real people patterns, and so they're not going to be shaped exactly like a doll, because a lot of, especially the really, really curvy dolls, they don't have real people measurements. We wish, right? We wish we look like them, but we don't. Most of us don't. And so the dimensions are going to be a little different, and so you might have to take actual measurements of your doll when you're drawing out the pieces. And then also, it's always good to use some scrap fabric when you're putting the pieces together, just so you can do a mock piece, try it on the doll, see how it fits, and where you might need to adjust. And just before we switch up the camera, I will say, I did take some time, since my hand was given the go to sew again, that we got his coat finished. And oh, I love this outfit. I'm so happy with it. So here's the back, and it's got the split in the back of the coat, and then it's pieced so that the flames come up to a point there, and it's just got a belt closure. I just wanted something that was very simple, so there's no pockets, no buttons. I just wanted it to just have a tie closure with a belt, so that's all it is. The inset black in the sleeve turned out really well. So this flame fabric, I just had that tiny little amount, and it was just perfect enough to put some on the pants, do the coat the way I wanted, and then take the little tiny leftover and do the applique on his shirt. And so yeah, I'm very happy with how that turned out. And in comparison, I ordered the white outfit that was supposed to have the paper bag waistline that I designed this pattern to have, and it was so fun. I didn't pay a lot, so I'm not like unhappy, but here we go. So in this outfit that I actually bought, it doesn't even have the paper bag waist. It's just darts. I mean, they're just pleats that are sewn down, so they're not even like a real pleat. It's just a dart that's closed, so it doesn't even have the open paper bag pleats at the top like my pattern does. I was like, oh, I like mine better. So there we go. So yeah, the jacket's okay. It's all right. But the fabric, too, was supposed to be like a linen fabric, and this is clearly a polyester blend. And then this is the funny part. This shirt here was supposed to be it was supposed to be a little collar with like a laced edge, you know, like a tight collar. And it's got this huge, huge hole for the neck. I'm like, what is that? So it's like, okay, yeah, I think I like my sewing better. So there you go. So there's the comparison. I'm very happy with the one I made. So not to brag, but oh well, you know. So there we go. So his outfit is all finished, and I am very pleased, and I like it better than the one I paid for. So yeah, so learning to sew, it's a good thing, because then you can make things the way you want them to be. So there we go. Okay, so enough of me just rattling on and on. We'll go ahead and switch up the camera, and I'll come back with some slightly enlarged images, and then we'll go ahead and draft this pattern. The pattern we're going to enlarge is a Simplicity 9394 Star Trek costume pattern. So this is the cover of the pattern, in case you want to get a good look at that. Then we take out the instruction set. So here's the instructions, and what we're going to enlarge are the diagram pieces that are right here. So what I did to enlarge all this is I made just a regular photocopy. so that I would have a more clear black and white image. Then I took this image and I increased it to double its size, or increased it, and it depends kind of on the copy machine that you want to use. On my copy machine, I had to literally go to 200%. So this is 100% of the image, and I did it by 200%, I'm sorry. On some machines, you would just do the percentage of increase. So I increased it by 100%. But on my machine, I have to do the literal, I'm going to 200%. So you just have to know how your machine enlarges. So this is double the size. So we can move that. So this is my image that is twice as big. Then I took some measurements of my quarter scale fella. This is a Miro doll ball jointed quarter scale. It is their newer version. They also have one that's a lot more muscular that is their quarter scale, but he's actually smaller than this one. This one's a little bit taller. So let's see, I will get my for your reference, this body is 40 centimeters. So then if you put a head on it, you're going to have about a 46 centimeter doll. Maybe 45, but 45, 46 centimeter doll. So that's the reference for you for this particular body. So I took measurements of this guy that would correspond to the measurements on this pattern. Because of the way the front is designed, we have so many little pieces in here, and this waist, if you'll notice, is not the true waist because of the angles. So I had to kind of find where the actual waist would be on these pieces in order to get some measurements. So on my original, which is now, whoa, this piece, because this is the one I'm going to enlarge, the sleeve, like the underarm of the sleeve, was 6 centimeters. The inseam here is 8.5 centimeters. The crotch seam, and I had to get rid of, you know, the part that extends above the waist. So from the waist to the in crotch seam was 4 centimeters. And across the chest, going across like from the underarm around the front pieces and the back, the chest was 8.3 on here. So then I go ahead and I put my measurements of the actual doll. So the underarm of the sleeve is 11 centimeters, the inseam is 22, the crotch seam from the center up to the waist is 6.5, and the chest, around the chest, is 18.5. So now here comes some math. Are you excited about the math? So to find how much I'm going to enlarge to get from my original drawing to what the doll is I would divide the doll's measurement by the original measurement. Because I know if I'm going to multiply this times something to get where I want to be, that was the number I had to find. So I divide what the doll is by this. So it's kind of like when you look at a multiplication or division problem. If you know that 2 times 3 equals 6, then you know if you're missing this number, you can take 6 divided by 2 to get the 3. So sometimes if you just write out your simple math problem on information that you know, then if you're missing one of those numbers, and where's my eraser? I don't know. But if you're missing one of those numbers, there we go, then you can see, oh, okay, I know I have to divide the 6 by the 2 in order to find my 3. So we divided the doll measurements by the original measurements to get what we multiplied by to arrive there. Now, these measurements aren't all the same, so let's see if I can get these to show a little bit better. So here we have 1.83, 2.59, 1.63, 2.23. So what I want to do is I want to know how much I'm going to have to enlarge my drawing by. So I add all these four numbers, and then I divide that total by 4 to get an average enlargement of 2.07, which means I'm roughly going to have to double this again in order to get to my doll. So that's going to be, the average is 2.07, so I'm just going to enlarge this by 2. So the next step, I do a graph of 1 centimeter blocks. And I know I want to double that, so then on this graph, instead of 1 centimeter blocks, I have 2 centimeter blocks. So I've made a graph that's twice as big by having a 2 by 2 centimeter to correspond to my 1 by 1 centimeter. And I've labeled the top edge by my numbers, 1 through 20, and this one actually goes to 24. And then I did my alphabet down the side here so that my graph corresponds. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start drawing in and transferring these lines into this graph. This is a technique that you've seen a lot of times in children's activity books or in the newspaper in the olden days, where they would have a small drawing and then a larger graph, and by transferring the lines in those particular squares to the bigger square, you enlarge the drawing. So that's what we're going to do. It's very old old school in order to scale something up, but it's kind of the simplest way to do it if you don't have something that you want to just keep enlarging and enlarging, because I didn't know that I could just double this size when I made it without doing the math. So since we have this ready, that's what we're going to do. So here we have in the B box, we're going to look in the first column, and we have a line that goes like here, and then it's going to come down with a slight curve like this. Then this line is going to go all the way across to the tip of that square. And then we're going to come into the third square slightly past the center. That's going to come down slightly past the center. There we go. Then we come down into the C box, and we're going to come quite a bit over. There we go. Down to the D, the bottom of the D box, and partway into the E2. Then we're going to come back up. Let's see, it looks like the C is going to come pretty much straight down and almost to here in the D box. Then it's going to angle and connect those lines by crossing that. And so here we have, make it a little bit darker. Hopefully this is showing up on my camera. And then across, I'm trying to make these darker. And this is piece A. And I did go ahead and look at the actual pattern pieces because the darts are optional. If you're doing the female version, you would use the darts. If you're doing the male version, you would not. So the optional darts would be here. So then we're going to go to our next piece. So I need the F line, and we're going to have it here, about there. It's not quite about halfway. It's going to go straight across and across. Then in the 3 box here, it's going to go across again and across again. In the 4 box F, it's going to come here with just a slight piece. So here is piece number F, which is that piece right there. And that is how I would transfer and enlarge this pattern to double its size. We'll do one more piece here. We're going to go to the H block, and in the first column, it's a little bit below, it's going to come real narrow. Then I is going to curve like more like that. In J, all right, it's going to go a little wider. K, kind of straight down. L, going to curve back a little. M, curve back even more. N, curve back even more. O, almost to the very end. And P, almost there. And Q, we're actually going to come to the point of intersection there. R, it's slightly going to overlap. Let's see, R, S, starting to come into the next column. T is about here. All right, so there's one edge. All right, then we're going to look in the fourth column. In G, we're going to have the tip. It's going to cross slightly here. Then there. And then it's going to meet there. All right, now we're coming down. We're in the fourth column. We're down into the H box. Sounds like a game console, right? J. Oh, I forgot I. Okay. There we go. I and J. Then K is going to have the curve start for the crotch line. And it's going to go into the fifth column. Then L, and the fifth column is where it's going to come back to touch where those lines meet. Come back here. N, O, let's see, O is going to be in a little bit more, but not a lot of curve. P, not very much curve at all. Q, not very much curve at all, kind of straight down. R, kind of straight down. S, kind of straight down. S is in, oh, maybe a little bit more of a curve there. Then T, it's going to come T here. It's about here. And now it's going to come across. And there we have piece number J. So that is how you can, and you can kind of then compare it, like, is this that curvy? Well, it kind of is. Maybe not quite as curvy, but pretty much, to make sure that your enlarged drawing is a match to the one that, you know, you used to begin. So that's how we're going to enlarge this pattern from, we'll grab it, our original instructional to double its size, take some measurements, compare to the doll. Yeah, we're going to double it again. So we make our graph and transfer our pattern over and enlarge it in the process. So that's how we can enlarge this Star Trek. I'm going to make that a little bit more pointed. This Star Trek pattern, and then I can kind of adjust my curve to where I want it. And you can kind of tell this goes out and then it gets a little lumpy here, so I'll probably kind of smooth that out. Just simply make a little bit of an adjustment. Then once you get these pattern pieces finished and cut out, you can do just like a mock trial of your pattern, and then see how it compares to your actual doll measurements. Because remember, we're kind of going by a guesstimate because these are designed for people and not our dolls. And so this actual number of that particular measurement, there's quite a bit of variation. And so we're getting an average of enlarge it by 2, but not every piece would actually be enlarged by 2. But to have consistency, that's what we're going to do. So then you might have to make a few alterations when you're actually sewing. For example, we can put our doll here and line up where his crotch line. We can see that this is going to be pretty short on this guy. The top would fit. It looks like it's going to be fair, but the legs are going to be a lot shorter. So in this pattern, this picture shows there's like an opening on the front of the legs. But when I was looking at the actual instructions, there's actually elastic sewn to the bottom, so it gives it more of a pedal pusher type to hold the leg down. So I would probably, once I get these cut off, I would compare these pieces against the doll and see if, for instance, the sleeves are okay, but I need to lengthen the leg. Or the chest piece looks pretty good, but the upper neck piece needs to be heightened a little bit to go over the shoulder. So you might want to just check these against your doll before you even cut your mock fabric, just to make sure it's going to be what you want. But that's in general how we can go ahead and enlarge a pattern from people pattern diagram pieces to actual pattern pieces that you can use. Also realize that these pieces represent pattern pieces that have different size seam allowances. So you want to account for this and say, okay, well, I base these on actual measurements of the doll, so I'm going to go ahead and add my seam allowance as well. So you just want to watch for that as you're enlarging. Make sure you have enough that you can actually sew the pieces together. So there we go. I'll go ahead and finish this up, compare it to my doll, finish up and get a pattern ready so you can try it if you'd like. There you go. That's how we do it. So have a great day and happy sewing.